All right, everybody, what's up? Jared on an island back again. We're going to go over some ideas. All right, sitting here on my rocking chair feels good. The sun's hitting me, getting that vitamin D. Interesting thing you may not know about. If you're wearing a white shirt, you get 50% more vitamin D because apparently 50% of the sunlight goes through the shirt. I didn't know that. I need to start wearing more white. It feels pretty good not being extremely hot because of wearing black all the time. So what I want to talk about today is the fact that 200 years ago, you'd have 100 autists study one thing for their whole life. And now you have 1 million autists studying 100 million things their whole life. And it isn't really the best things. If you know someone that is neurotypical, as they call it, or someone that can autistically hyperfixate on something, you know that today they're hyperfixating on the worst possible thing, usually. I think everyone has a little bit of this in them. Everyone has their hobby, their interest, and most of the time now it's not very good for society. Let's just say that. Something interesting to consider is 200 years ago, you'd have someone and they'd see a bird that they liked and they'd literally study and examine and hyperfixate on this bird their whole entire life, that one singular type of bird. And we'd get so much knowledge from that, it would help science as we know it, right? And today you may see that, but a lot of times what ends up happening is you have this guy who would maybe invent something completely new, and he's hyperfixated on Steven Universe from Cartoon Network, which is the worst show known to mankind. And I think that's horrible. I think that we need to somehow encourage these guys to get hyperfixated on something great. Now, I can't provide you the answer of what you should be hyperfixated on because it's really up to the individual to find something that they like. It has to come from their own answer or else they're not going to be interested in it. But I can say what you shouldn't like, right? So any sort of video game that you aren't creating content in so that people can expand their consciousness is not helpful. Playing Hearts of Iron 4, as we know, isn't helpful once you get past hour or two of playing for fun because your cortisol and stress levels are so high playing the game, you're just hurting yourself. And the spreadsheets mean nothing. The end goal means nothing. You're going to finish the game, get your achievement, and you're going to have nothing to do afterwards and nothing tangible from it. I would say playing the game is fun for entertainment, and that's great. And maybe you can learn or master something from the first 5 to 10 hours playing, just like multitasking or understanding balances of what is essentially a spreadsheet. But anything past hour 5 or 10, you're literally just stressing yourself out for fun. Everyone's heard this before, that doom scrolling or YouTube short scrolling or whatever else like that is not really relaxing you. It's really just stimulating you and causing you to freak out without realizing it. It's the same thing for a lot of these video games, right? And that isn't to say video games aren't fun. I love video games, but I understand that they are a real life cope. It's just you can see that and still love your addiction, right? And it's okay to be entertained sometimes, okay? So I'm not saying you have to give up video games for life either, but we do need to find something correct to hyperfixate on. And when I make these videos, I'm half talking to myself. I am human. I am not perfect in any way, but I can recognize problems even if I don't like what I'm recognizing. That's why I like extremely controversial figures, because I can see where they're right or where they're saying something that is a different perspective and respectable perspective, even if the content of their character isn't that good, right? So let's think about this. What should we be hyperfixating on? I would say this: go and study your last name. Go see what it means and go see what the profession that your last name coincides to historically, because I think that you're probably going to be genetically inclined to do whatever work that is. So, and I'm not saying you have to do it, but it is a good place to start to look at something that may be similar to it that would be an interesting thing, skill, hobby, job to learn or have based off that information. Making sure my mic's still on. But so I would start there, and I would also recognize where you are in terms of IQ. That does determine where you're going to end up in terms of a job, or at least your capacity to consciously build something from your thought patterns, right? So, hold on, I'm being gang stalked. There's a helicopter flying above me. Another thing is, don't beat yourself up over the fact that you don't or you don't know or you don't have what you're supposed to know. Soul Bra talks about this, that you have to just accept that it is going to come to you, and then it will come to you. If you fight the universe's randomness, it does not feed you the same way. It doesn't nurture you the same way as if you let and if you respect the randomness of life. The same thing happens with luck. If you say, I need to play the lottery because I need to win, you're not going to win. Everyone who wins, they didn't expect to win. They weren't thinking, oh, I was playing the lottery because I needed to win. I needed it to happen, bro. It never works that way. And if you find yourself thinking that same habitual thought pattern as a gambler, and you end up losing more than you gain, the same thing applies to life in general. If you're trying to force supernatural powers to feed you power, even in religion, this is talked about. Like, you can't demand something from Jesus, from God. You have to respect his storyline he's creating for you in a way. Now, that doesn't also mean that you shouldn't be taking self responsibility. And I know responsibility is a cope word, it's just used many times to control you. But at the same time, there is, when you're healthy and when you're conscious, you can choose to do things that empower you over choosing to wait because of fear. And usually, when you're healthy and conscious, you can put aside that fear a lot easier. And that's why that's the most important step. And usually, when you are at that healthy place, it just feels like you're going with the flow, doing the right thing. Now, if it's extremely hard for you, you're probably not healthy to the point where you're being able to be more conscious than you are when you're stressed. So I would get that fixed. I would look into Dr. Ray Peat. But that's just something to consider. The overall idea that we can hyperfixate on something, we can all have a specialized skill pretty easily that we enjoy, and we can make something of it. This is, of course, like I just said, is step 2 or 3 after being healthy. If you aren't healthy, this isn't going to happen at all. So let's get healthy, then let's see what we can hyper specialize in. And that's how we can have a healthy community as well. You specialize in something while being open to everything else. I like to consider myself a maverick, but so does everyone else. Everyone likes to think we all know so much information that's helpful. No, you just were on Reddit for a couple years and you a million facts that your brain somehow knows or is able to store, and then none of those facts apply to your everyday life, don't help you develop any sort of skill, and if anything, just confuse your mind to the point of reality not being what you expect, because those facts are interesting, quirky details that you don't gain anything. And if anything, you're probably hurting yourself reading that, because it's not only facts, it's Reddit, it's propaganda, it's opinions, right? So don't do that. Don't consume information you don't need, right? It's as simple as that. There's something evil and dark about watching the same reel or YouTube short pop up 10 times. If you've seen the short 10 times, you know exactly what I'm talking about if you watch shorts or reels or TikToks or whatever else. When you see that video pop up again, something's wrong, because the algorithm isn't supposed to show you the same video twice. It would never intentionally do that when there's so much more content to consume, right? So when it does, something is going wrong about either how much you're consuming or what you're consuming in the first place. And then when you notice that a whole bunch of other people are consuming the exact same content as you, even when it comes to your... So when I was recording the last video, my phone overheated, so I didn't get to record the ending of it. But it's the next day, and I'll just wrap up my thoughts. So basically what I was saying was, whenever you're watching 100 Instagram reels and you start seeing the repetitive, you start seeing the same reel or YouTube short over and over again, this is a form of black magic. It may not be completely intentional on the algorithm's part, but it shows that you are being stuck in a loop that is detrimental to yourself. That's really all it is. Because when you see these videos, it's usually not the most positive thing, especially if you're already consuming complete slop. But seeing it repetitively is reinforcing that slop in your head already. And your brain now thinks it's even more important, because what type of memories do you replay in your head? Do you replay the ones that are meaningless and don't mean anything to you, or do you replay trauma and hopefully good moments of your life? But people mainly replay trauma in their head. So it's another form of cope control, and another form of cementing cope into your life so that you repeat these behaviors. So back to the main idea though, we need to break free from this overall habit and cycle of encouraging repetitive behavior when it comes to the things that are holding us back. So I had this long tangent and rant about how we need to have something unique in our life, but that's deleted. So now I feel like I have to summarize it. So I'm gonna do that. I need everyone to not like this video or subscribe. I hope you do, but I need you to put a unique comment down below. And it's gonna be hard and you're not gonna know what to say, but I need you to think creatively and just put something new out into the world. And we're gonna start with a comment on this video. Most people leave copy paste comments, and that's funny. It can be funny and it can be great, but we need to not be NPCs, guys. So leave a unique comment below. That's all I'm asking. And let's work on not having the algorithm show us repeated content, because that's definitely not good. So the last thing I'll say is, if you could create your own algorithm and you could consume what type of content you wanted to watch, what would it look like? What would your feed look like? And what would make it okay to spend as much time as we do now scrolling or watching, right? Because it can be helpful. I think the best way that I learn is through Peter Griffin AI videos. I don't know why the association with, I guess it's just, well, honestly, it's pretty obvious. The association with funny cartoon that I enjoyed already stimulates my brain enough to where I'm like, oh, well, I obviously like Family Guy and I obviously like Peter Griffin. So whatever he's saying is gonna be a positive to my mental, right? So then whenever it's one of these AI videos that is teaching you something unique, I feel more able to retain and pay attention to that information, which is a great learning tactic and a great way to get people's attention. So if we could cultivate that, create more stuff like that, would be great. So if we had our own algorithm and could create any type of content we wanted, would it be something more like that? Would it be more to whatever your personal preference is? Just take some time to think about what that would look like. Think, perceive, act, right? Repeat. So let's think about it, let's perceive it, and then let's act on it. I've tried to make a AI Peter Griffin video before, and it's not as hard as it looks. The thing is, it just costs a little bit of money for the AI voices. But besides that, once you pay for it, you could make infinite amount of content. I think I might actually do that. So make sure to help out the channel so that I can get that revenue going, so I can pay for that. But what are some other things that we can do? I've seen people use TikTok brain rot to do this as well. Just any sort of brain rot character, like Italian brain rot, whatever that is. I've also seen people use AI cat videos and stuff like that, which is great. And it is a productive way to use AI, of course. I did see that a study came out where kids that were taught with AI excelled to the top 3% of the nation's education just by using AI. Now, people are hesitant to fall into this because they don't think that first surface level thought is that AI is going to teach you based off of what it thinks is good for everyone as a whole. But when you know how to cultivate AI to you personally through mass input of your character and your personality into it, it can teach you way better than, let's say, a teacher that is trying to teach 30 students different personalities all at once. So it can be a helpful tool for you individually. Now, of course, this does come with a risk of AI knowing you better than most people knowing you, but I think it's worth a risk. If at this moment you're not an insanely popular character or someone famous, I don't think that it's going to be detrimental to you, because there are so many people on this earth that it's inevitable to gain the mass characterization of everyone as a whole. And as we know from the brain rot repetitive cycle of the algorithm, you're not as special as you think you are, especially since you're not trying to force yourself to be special constantly. And that isn't a negative thing to say, by the way. It's just a simple fact of the nature of how we fall in line to these communities that we're a part of. So we need to become more niche, more esoteric. Exactly as I was saying in the beginning for the video I recorded yesterday, but technically at the beginning of this one, we need to become so esoteric and so niche that AI can barely keep up, if they can keep up at all. And then we have to essentially use AI and technology to build the foundation of us. And then it's up to us to create the spearhead. And if we all manage to do this, we can evolve in a way, right? And this isn't falling into line with transhumanism, because we aren't allowing the AI to create the tip of the spear for us. If we use AI to build the base of the spear and then we're the tip, right? We aren't using AI to shape the tip. We just are doing that ourselves while letting AI create the foundation. So we still get to respect the natural shaping of what we become through our own consciousness and through our own natural ability, not through online technology, right? So I hope this provided a unique perspective to you, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this.